Hello and welcome. We are with Mr. S. Durgashankar of M&M. Sir, thank you so much for joining
My
us.
pleasure.
How are M&As, poised to take off in this VUCA environment?
Right. It's a interesting topic and was the topic of conversation today. What does VUCA do to an M&A? See, if you look at in a VUCA, which is a volatile world, the whole paradigm changes rapidly. There are many things in the business that is changing today, especially IT. If you see that companies which were the darlings 2-3 years ago, even 5 years ago, suddenly become non-entities today. How does M&A and this VUCA environment come together?
Right.
And if you say M&A is all about reacting fast and reacting to conditions. Because it's focused on inorganic and not necessarily organic.
Okay.
It allows you to rapidly adjust to circumstances. M&A does not mean only acquisition, it also means divestiture. So you should also be prepared to cut whenever that you believe that you are not adding that much value, then you should be in a position to so. So to that extent, M&A is a great tool that the managers of today have, especially has become relevant in a VUCA world. And they have to learn not only to acquire new technologies, new geographies, as well as be ready if they believe that times are changing and somebody else can add better value than them, they should be able to move away from that as well. So I believe it's a very relevant tool in this type of an environment.
Okay, how challenging will M&As be going forward, considering that the world is increasingly getting more volatile and uncertain?
Again, very interesting. M&As are also evolving, and Indian M&A especially, since we are interested in that particular topic. If you see, India about 15 years ago, if you look at the M&A scenarios 15 years ago, you would see that more of developed nations acquiring assets in developing or underdeveloped nations. In that type of a situation, it was very clear who brought more value. So from the West, they brought technology, superior process of managing, superior brand, apart from money. So in all ways, it was aspirational to be acquired by somebody like that. Now, if you look at the changing paradigm in the global context, you see India and China are making more and more acquisitions across the world. And can India and China be said to be having higher technology than the West, or more process-oriented than the West? Do they have bigger brands than in the West? Answer to all that is no. So it appears that Indians or Chinese are acquiring globally because they have today an amount of money to spare, which is not there anywhere in the global context. That brings its own challenges. It brings opportunities, as I said earlier. It brings challenges because today you are acquiring companies who do not necessarily respect you, in that inverted commas, for what you bring to the table. How does one manage that type of a situation? That management and ability to govern such a situation is what is going to actually determine in future how India and China make success out of it. One way of doing that is not to impose one's will, to learn where there is skill, where there are better advantages, and try to leverage on it. That itself is a corporate philosophy. I believe M&M does that in many ways, and I believe that's one of the differentiating factors as we go forward.
Okay, now M&As have two faces. There's one that you see from the front, but at the back end also there is a whole lot of work which is involved, and a whole lot of merging of cultures, environments, people, all of that happens on the back end. In this changing environment, and given the VUCA environment, how difficult will it be for companies to actually manage the back end of these M&As?
Well, when companies move into M&A, typically they are faced with a few situations. So first, let's talk about how M&As are performed. M&A's work starts much before something you see in the newspapers. Sometimes it takes even a couple of years before it comes to fruition. The target may not even realize that is up for, because the discussion starts in a different way, alliances, collaboration. People develop comfort with each other. before there. In that process, there are also quite a bit of things that needs to be kept in mind. And many deals have fallen because of that particular aspect. The counterparty may be thinking that he is having a joint venture. The proposal is for a joint venture. Somebody else may be thinking that it's an acquisition. So that's diametrically different shift. So if somebody focuses on joint value creation, mutual respect for what we both the parties have, then you would see that M&A success rates are that much more. This is one part of it. Second part of it, M&A is a costly process. Even today, it's a very costly process. Right. Not all can engage in it, especially if they require investment bankers' support, due diligence support. Internationally, it's at least 2 to 3 times costlier than what you would find in India and the other equivalent countries. So it's a challenge for mid-sector companies in order to graduate to that level and learn that. Third is you brought the right aspect about culture integration. It's very important. M&A does not end the day announcement is made. In fact, good chunk of work actually starts at that point in time. People integration, system integration. Right. If it's not handled properly, synergies which are critical for M&A success won't be realized.
It's interesting you spoke about costs, the cost of an M&A. In this challenging environment, do you see the cost of actually acquiring a company going up?
Cost of acquiring a company, yes, it goes up. But it also depends upon the size of the company being acquired. That's where bigger companies are at an advantage. Mainly because if you look at it as a percentage of the acquired acquisition cost, for bigger companies, it turns to be something relatively more handleable. But for mid-sized companies or smaller ones, it's prohibitively expensive. And I also believe that many of the costs, especially the costs of investment bankers, is really not justified. It's horrendously high because if you look at it, basically what does an investment banker bring to the table? He's certainly not an expert in accounts. He's certainly not an expert in law, not that much in finance. So exactly what is he bringing to the table? He brings in mainly a basic knowledge in all. The most important thing is problem-solving attitude. He is one guy who says, if somebody says, I have a problem, it's like music to his ears. He says, that's fantastic. And for that, the amounts that is charged is horrendously high. So where I am leading to is that there is a need for change in this industry. In M&M, we are trying to do something called M Square, which is attempting to redefine this and try to bring down the cost of investment banking, but this is not the context for or the time for that. So that's important. If M&A is to become a product which all can use, not only top-end companies, but also mid-sector and small-sector companies, if we are to get them to use it, the cost of investment banking has to come down substantially.
As of today, you find M&As, at least the costs, unviable for mid-sized and small companies?
Yeah, for the size of the deal, you can't engage top-end professionals. That's one type of issue. Second type of issue is in due diligence. People more often than not, at least at the mid-sector companies, give up on due diligence because it is expensive. But that's completely, it's a hygiene factor. We cannot give it up. At the same time, today due diligence is also not really focused on cash flow aspects. It's more and more accounting aspects. You will see most of the due diligence reports frankly don't find out anything significant. That's because they are not focusing on the business areas. So there is a need for the acquirer also to be conscious of the fact and drive the due diligence in a way that's most productive to him. If they do that both together, then it becomes much more viable. Otherwise, for mid-size, small-size deals, cost of acquisition is relatively much higher.
So in your view, going forward, M&As and the way Indian companies handle M&As will change. It's not an option. It must happen.
It should change, and hopefully will be part of the change.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.